It's December 9th, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have fairy photos that fooled the world, a glowing spiral in the Arctic sky, and a reporter silenced for what he uncovered. Let's begin. On December 9, 1920, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the celebrated creator of Sherlock Holmes, stepped before the public and announced something that left the world divided, fascinated, and deeply unsettled. He declared that fairies had been captured on film. The photographs came from two young cousins in the quiet village of Cottingley, images of delicately winged figures hovering beside them. In an age shaken by the horrors of World War I, people were desperate for signs that magic still exists. And Doyle, a man who had spent years chasing spiritual truths, believed he had finally found proof. He studied the images obsessively. He wrote about them, lectured about them, and held them up as evidence that the unseen world breathes just beyond human sight. But there was always something eerie about how easily even a master of deduction fell under their charm. Skeptics whispered of trick photography of paper cutouts and childish games, yet Doyle insisted that the girls had captured the element of the spirits, creatures that lived on the edge of our reality. To him, the photographs weren't just images, they were lifelines for a grieving world. Decades later, the cousins would confess that the fairies had been staged, carefully poised with hatpins and cutouts, a simple hoax. But the final photograph remained a point of quiet defiance. One of the girls swore unto her death that one was real. He forever tied his legacy to a mystery that even he could not unravel. The shadows where hope, grief, and the supernatural intertwine. On December 9th, 2009, people of northern Norway stepped outside expecting an ordinary winter morning, only to look up and see high above the mountains a glowing blue beam piercing the sky, twisting and spiraling. At its center was a perfect white core, expanded in slow, silent rotation. It was enormous, too large to be a firework, too still for a storm, and too structural for any natural phenomenon. Drivers slammed on their brakes, children stared from windows, entire neighborhoods stood in the snow, unsure what they were witnessing was a miracle or an omen. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the spiral collapsed inwards, its center bending into a sharp black void before the entire structure dissolved into the night like smoke, sucked into a vent. Authorities rushed to explain it. A failed Russian missile test, they said. A malfunction that caused the rocket to spin. Logical, technical, and contained. But the details never fit neatly. The symmetry was too precise, the duration too long, and the spiral's lights too bright, too stable, and too engineered. Astronomers were baffled, conspiracy theorists ignited. Some claimed it was a wormhole forming in the utmost atmosphere. Others whispered that it was a message, a sign from somewhere far beyond our understanding. To this day, there's no universally accepted explanation, only video evidence, eyewitness accounts, and a lingering sense of unease whenever the night sky feels just a little too quiet. On December 9th, 1935, a cold Minneapolis evening settled in as investigative journalist Walter Liggett pulled his car up the narrow alleyway behind his apartment building. He had spent months exposing the dark undercurrent of organized crime and political corruption, woven through the Twin Cities, naming names no one else dared utter. Then, on this night, a shadowy figure finally answered back. His wife and young daughter sat beside him, exhausted from a long day, unaware of the danger that just waited behind them. As the engine quieted, another car rolled slowly down the alley. No horn, no shout, no warning. The passenger window slid down. In a split second, quiet evening shattered. Gunfire echoed through the narrow brick corridor, ringing out like metal striking metal. Liggett collapsed beside his car door, his wife screaming, shielding their daughter from the unfolding horrors. The attacker never spoke a word. He simply stared for a heartbeat too long, and then swept away into the darkness. Police arrived within minutes, but answers never did. Witnesses describe a well-dressed man, calm and composed, as if he was performing a task he'd already rehearsed. Some insisted the killer was tied to organized crime. Others believed corrupt political leaders, exposed by his reporting. Yet every lead evaporated, every accusation crumbled, and no one was ever convicted. Walter Liggett died fighting for the truth, but the truth behind his murder remains in a shadow. A reminder that in a world of corruption, he uncovered the line between power and violence, and it was frighteningly thin. Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.